Anyway, just my usual thing of allergy safety does come down. It all comes back to capitalism, you guys, because if they actually cared about people's safety, then they would act pretty differently, but what they care about is making money. I guess that's a pretty strong note to start the stream on. It's on topic, right? Okay. So, Disco Elysium Day 3. We just talked to the cryptozoologist and the cryptofascist. So, fuck capitalism, absolutely, as always. The stream title? I'm glad you're enjoying the stream title. My brother in Marxism. What are you doing? This could apply to a few characters in this game. I was trying to think of like a funny title, and that was all that came to me today. I don't know if I've topped I've topped myself when I named one of my streams. No, don't measure my head. You're too sexy. Yes, I did meet Gary. He seems insufferable. Okay. Here's my task list. So, I gotta check the traps for Morel, so that him and Gary can get some rest. Check the trap in Land's End. Check the trap that he just set up. Check the trap near the boathouses. Check the trap near the canal. Okay. Get Estelle to open up about her friends after setting up the nightclub. Okay, set up the nightclub and then talk to Noid. It feels like setting up the nightclub seems to be a pretty big one. But, hold on. The traps that he just set up, are there traps here? Or, no, it doesn't look like there are any traps I can select here, so maybe not. I'm gonna use that in certain circles. I think you should. I think it's funny. I came up with that myself. So, I hope you enjoy it. It's not patented, so you can use it as much as you want. I'm all about the joke communism here. No boat in the boathouse today. Ooh, new sunglasses. +1 savoir-faire, but -1 visual calculus. Okay, but my current glasses are giving me more empathy and less logic. It's a toss-up, isn't it? I already have pretty high empathy points, but... ooh, which glasses do I prefer more, though? You know what I mean? Which glasses are slaying more? Well, we'll leave these for now. We'll see how I feel. My opponent in Christ when seeing shenanigans in Yu-Gi-Oh! That's funny. I think that if you're, you know, in like a leftist organizing group or something, I think that using my brother in Marxism is gonna serve you well. I think maybe I'll start using that in my organizing groups.
Is the reeds at your feet. Looks like the same one you saw Morel set before. Same mesh, same wiring.
Okay, cool. So that's what the traps look like. That's helpful. Let's look around.
Behind you, a ruined residential building looms over the reeds, shielding them from the wind. They rustle confidentially, in tune with the pitter-patter of the rain. When this district was booming, the reeds were kept at bay. Nothing obscured the freshly painted facades. Nowhere for drunks and adventurous teenagers to hide. Now only the wind blows.
Reach for the trap.
Locusts are crawling around in the trap, confused but uneaten. You see no carnivorous reed phasmid gorging on them.
Big surprise. Anyway, one down.
The lieutenant grins mirthlessly. Kim, why do you have to be such a fucking downer about the supernatural? I'm not gonna fucking entertain it, Kim. You be a grouch. I'm just gonna move on and do my thing. Say nothing. Just put the trap down.
You set the apparatus back on the ground, among the reeds.
Okay, one trap down. The boathouse is shoddily constructed. A strong breeze might blow it over. Looks like a slightly new area. Ancient paint is peeling off the roof of this shaded bench covered in rust. What's this building? I don't think I've seen it before. I feel like I'm picking up a lot of random crap. I don't really know what I can do with it. Maybe I can sell it to the pawnbroker or something, which would be helpful because I'm broke as. But
a scattering of bullet holes is spread across the cracked wall, reaching from one corner to the other.
Look, Kim, even more bullet holes. Something's definitely gone down here.
Correct. The density of the bullet holes is unusual. Even in a general average bullet hole frequency in Martinaise sense. Grim affairs.
Okay, is this implying that some kind of like gun violence is common here?
Meaning this is a lot of bullet holes. Looks like fully automatic rifle fire. Something you don't see these days.
Interesting. Why not?
The manufacturing and sale of automatic rifles was curtailed after the revolution. The destructive power of such tools proved to be too much. We do need to retain some humanity in this world.
Interesting. Okay. My chances on this aren't looking very good, but let's roll for visual calculus. Why this many bullet holes?
Unable to piece together the big picture just now. There's a hole in their hypothesis.
Fine, okay.
The scattering of bullet holes looks like one giant smiling mouth.
It's okay, we'll come back to it. Oh, what's that? No, it's just the wall again. I've been thinking so much today about the new fucking Lilo and Stitch movie. That's the main thing on my mind today. I'm just so angry about it. I haven't seen it yet. I had no intention of seeing it because boycott Disney. I don't think I was even interested in like pirating it because I just like fuck that. But everything that I've heard about it has made me so angry. Like I can't stop thinking about it. It's like I'm so furious. I can't even like describe. Okay, the small wire framing inside this futuristic looking found peepo hat. It's a hat. Okay, good. I need a hat that's not a racist hat. Gives it the aerodynamic shape of a swoop skier's helmet, but none of its protective qualities. Covers the wearer's eyes and eyebrows to bring down the drag coefficient. Oh. Cool. +2 logic, but -1 perception. Okay. Well, it is what it is. I don't know how they fucked it up that bad. Yeah, so, I mean, it's fascinating because there's a lot to say about it, but I think that, like, what they've done to the anti-colonial and anti-imperialist themes of the movie and also, like, the queer and found family themes of that movie, like, they've completely, like, eroded all of that and they've turned it into like US imperialist propaganda. I think, you know, Disney obviously is like an evil corporation intent on making money, and I think that not only does it cater to kind of like increasingly like conservative markets, but also apparently Disney has a resort in Hawaii that they didn't have in 2002 when Lilo and Stitch came out. the original, the proper movie, the one that we will acknowledge and that we will watch. And a lot of the advertising around the movie and the movie itself is like advertising for that resort, which is of course ironic because part of the original themes of the original Lilo and Stitch is how the tourism industry, since the forced annexation, so the occupation of Hawaii, because Hawaii is of course occupied by the United States, and many Native Hawaiians would insist on you not calling Hawaii a state because it's annexation, it's occupation, it's colonization. The way that the tourism industry affects life for Native Hawaiians is a big theme of that first movie. And Disney is now complicit in that because they built a resort in Hawaii and they like contribute to the like housing and job crisis in Hawaii being experienced by the actual natives there because of American tourism. It's so fucked. Like, it's so completely fucked. And then obviously you have, yes, you did hear a cat. Layla jumped up on the table. She's here loafing on the table, being part of the conversation. Yeah, and then of course there's the propaganda for CPS. So the propaganda that indigenous people should surrender their children to the United States government and make their children into wards of the state, which is obviously like so disgusting and violent because it's part of an ongoing legacy where CPS and the foster care system is complicit in the ongoing cultural genocide of indigenous people by separating indigenous children from their families, and it's propaganda for that, and that's fucked, and it's propaganda for the tourism industry, and that's fucked. It even encourages Nani to like leave her native homeland, which is part of that propaganda to make way for American tourism and for American, housing and American gentrification and colonization of Hawaii. It's just fucking awful. But then also, like, and also in tandem with that, like, the fact that they don't have Pleakley, like, wearing women's clothes, which is, like, a whole very important part of Pleakley and his character and the themes of, like, Ohana in Lilo and Stitch, because, like, the movie very casually represents Pleakley as just being, like, he realizes that he's more comfortable. I mean, I use he, him pronouns because that's what Pleakley continues to use, but, that makes him more comfortable, and it's something that's dealt with very, like, casually and very comfortably, and Pleakley and Jumba, who kind of like have the vibe of like a queer couple, like even if it was like a platonic queer couple, kind of become part of the Ohana, right? Because like part of what Nani is struggling with is not that Lilo is a burden or that she doesn't want to take care of Lilo, but that her circumstances are horrible and that she needs support to take care of her sister, right? Support that the American state does not give. And through meeting Stitch and meeting Jumba and Pleakley and them becoming part of their Ohana, and David becomes part of their Ohana, and suddenly Nani has this support system where she has this support to take care of her sister. And so it's very like queer found family themes in that movie as well, right? And that's just like completely shredded by this movie. And of course, like the concept of Ohana and this kind of concept of family, which is so core to like the Native Hawaiian understanding of like family, which is very different from American individualism. You haven't seen the original film? Lilo and Stitch is one of my favorite movies of all time. It was my favorite Disney movie when I was a child. I was obsessed with it. I had Stitch toys. I remember like going to Disneyland as a child and getting like an autograph from Stitch and getting like merchandise from like Lilo and Stitch merchandise and all of that. Just my favorite movie. I used to watch the TV show all the time. I absolutely loved it as a child, and as an adult, still one of my favorite movies. Like the theme, like it's so clever and nuanced and like based, and it's just such a fantastic movie. Of course, yeah, not on Disney Plus or anything. Get a secondhand DVD, pirate it, whatever, because we don't support Disney as a corporation, but we do support the art. And yeah, but it's I guess part of the reason that I bring this up as well is that like on our channel we have a couple of videos that are talking about stuff that is relevant to this. So in our video essay on Life is Strange True Colors, we kind of like get really in depth into you know, the kind of anti-colonial criticism of child protective services and of the foster care system, and how they're a tool of the state and the cultural genocide of Indigenous people, and also just like the systematic violence towards Black and brown families in general. And I also talk about it a bit in the video on Telltale's The Walking Dead, because of how Clementine, as a young Black girl, is, you know, there's an attempt to separate her from her child. And I've been thinking about this in regards to Lilo and Stitch, because like some of what people have been saying in defense of these changes is that Nani is she's just a kid and she can't take care of her sister, and so actually it's better for her that the state separates her from her sister. And that's completely fucked, and that kind of narrative is imperialist propaganda, no doubt about it. And I talk about that in particular quite a bit in the video essay on Telltale's The Walking Dead, because in Telltale's The Walking Dead there's this kind of like narrative that Clementine is just a child, she can't take care of AJ on her own like her son, instead of being like, okay, no, how do we like create a support system that supports her to take care of her son, right? Like, and by, you know, in the final game she finds this community that helps and is a support system for her to take care of her son. And so it's really dangerous. If you see people saying this about Lilo and Stitch, it's a really dangerous narrative, and it needs to be combated. This idea that like Black and brown children who have like dependents, whether that's their children, their sister, whatever, Black and brown children who have dependents, Black and brown people who have dependents regardless of their age, the idea that they are not capable of taking care of them, and that makes it okay for the state to separate these families, that is propaganda to legitimize like racist imperialist violence against Black and brown people, and especially Indigenous people. So I've seen people saying this shit out there on the internet. It's really dangerous. It really needs to be combated. And if people want to learn more about this, on our YouTube channel at Game Assist, we do have a couple of video essays where we talk a little bit about this in relation to a couple of video games where these themes come up. And yeah, definitely get educated and debunk this kind of thing, because Child Protective Services it's the police in another font. It's a tool of the state to enact racist violence on Black and brown families. And, you know, a lot of people, honestly, they don't know what they're talking about, and they may or may not even realize that they're spreading like propaganda that's incredibly violent. So yeah. PSA on that. Not that this has been a theme in Disco Elysium. The door is only barred shut. It is inaccessible. I mean, who knows? Maybe it does end up being a theme in Disco Elysium, but I don't think it will be. I have a feeling that it won't be. I mean, one of the things that I kind of like am curious about in this game is some of the racial politics of it, but I'm gonna kind of like hold my thoughts on that because I kind of want to see how certain things develop. I think so far I've felt like there are some things that are good and interesting about the way that this game approaches those themes, and on the other hand, I've been a bit about them. So we shall see. We shall see. I mean, I'm very aware that, like, the team is primarily, like, especially, like, the writing team, is primarily, like, white Estonian people. People paid money to park here? No one would pay now. Okay, it doesn't look like there's anything else around here for me for right now, so let's skedaddle. Okay, invisible wall vibes, so I think I reached the edge of the map there. This section of the coast hasn't been used in decades. Okay, there's another trap.
This is the trap Morel just set. Checking it over, he said, is just a technicality. But
look around.
The reeds by the abandoned campsite hiss and shake in the lazily falling rain.
Downloading thanks to my friends on the high seas. Nice one, Evelyn. It's a dope-ass fucking movie. I hope you enjoy it. And it's a win for me if I get more people to watch Lilo and Stitch. Because, seriously, one of my favorite movies of all time.
The later it gets, the colder. Remnants of the camp can still be seen in the sand. The fire that's gone out. You feel strange, somehow.
Reach for the trap.
This trap is also full of panicked locusts. No sign of any cryptozoological beast inside.
Another empty trap.
The lieutenant takes note, more out of habit than duty. I'm taking the trap down. I'm not making my thoughts known.
Neither does the lieutenant. He just raises his collar. It's cold out, as always.
Okay, I guess I had to wait for Gary and Morel to leave in order to check that trap. Bars cover these long, dusty windows.
The remaining windows rattle from a strong gust of wind. They're covered in a thick layer of grime. They must have been like this for 40 years.
Try to see inside.
Dripping water falls from a high place. All you can see is the shadow of a collapsing staircase.
Lieutenant, can you make out what's inside?
No. I won't even try. You know...
He takes his glasses off.
I had a partner once. They called him Eyes, because he had to show me things. It's that bad.
This partner of his, Eyes, things didn't end well. It saddens him to say his name. Don't even ask. He wouldn't answer. Maybe some other small talk.
Can you still shoot, though?
Well enough, actually. It's odd how that works. I'm no sharpshooter, but I pass my shooting courses 7 out of 10.
Okay, it's a bit concerning, but... yesterday I was watching a video as well for, sorry, so much Lilo and Stitch talk, that was talking about something that I actually didn't know, which is that the opening song in Lilo and Stitch and the song that Nani sings to Lilo, at a particular point in the film, which is, like, really significant, is... So the opening song makes reference to the last queen of Hawaii before, you know, the American occupation and forced annexation. And the second song is written by the last queen of Hawaii, Aloha Oi, which means farewell to thee, and is a song that she wrote about, like, being forced out of her homeland by the Americans, which adds a lot of depth to the themes of the movie, for sure. The fence blocks the path, no way from here. That is a person and their child. Hello.
And Mikhail noticed the windows, especially with how there are no windows on the south side. This was to deal with.
A blond man stands next to his son, pointing to the weather-worn ruins. He sees you approaching and smiles.
You officers, come to investigate the historic subtext of West Martinaise? I'm Tran Heilostam. You must be Kim Kitsuragi, right? I was just telling my son about this building. Not a lot of people realize the historic significance here. Very rich in hypertext.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
The lieutenant nods. Hypertext?
Yes, hypertext. Young Cobb and the collection of cultural hyperlinks.
Okay. I feel like this is again one of those things that's like trying to riff off like an existing concept but using a different word, but I'm not quite picking up on it. Wait, what was that about the windows before?
Oh yes, so Mikhail. They had to deal with monitor glare, especially in the summer. They still had vector monitors back then. That was 49 years ago. So they didn't have windows on the south wall.
You and Kim know each other?
No, I can't say that we've met before, but I've heard of Kim, of course. Mikhail, say hi to the officers.
He rests his hand on the boy's shoulder. The child stays hidden behind the hem of his father's coat, clutching to his worm-themed colouring book.
Mikhail's a little tired today. We spent all night trying to run Orbis on his radio computer. Have you heard of it? It's a programming language used in Grad. Quite tricky, but he wanted to play this Grad-made adventure program. We've been getting really into verbs lately.
Okay. Video games. It's where my head is going is like the old Snake game that I used to have on like my Nokia mobile phone and I was obsessed with. Honestly there's not a lot of games that have topped Snake. I miss Snake. And I feel like if there's a version of Snake on like your iPhone or something, it's just not going to hit as hard as it hit on your old Nokia.
The man speaks in the artificial cadence of a professor, or someone who's been on too many radio shows.
It's an interesting comment because I was kind of thinking that about his voice acting.
But I assume you're not here for giant worms when there are so many real things to see. Just as I was telling Mikhail before, this is where the Coalition landed in '08. We could be standing on what is the most interesting landmark in Revacholiere West.
Interesting. He points to the building again.
This man is your half-brother. You feel it. But why?
Okay, so this is an interesting comment because I think that Harry's brain says this about Kim the first time that he meets. I remember I was playing it and it was like, who is this guy? And it was like, he's your half-brother with regards to Kim. And I think at first I was like, but it seems like they don't know each other. So you clearly, I don't think you literally mean half-brother. So what do you mean by that? And I don't remember if it was also Esprit de Corps which said that the first time. But because it is now, I'm wondering if that means like a cop or someone that works for the state in some way, like that is a half-brother. I'm curious about that. I'm not sure yet. I think I'd have to revisit that earlier part of the game and also see if it comes up at any other points to see if there's a pattern there, but it's an interesting tidbit. Oh, you haven't heard of Snake before? So Snake it was just like this little game that you would get on your old phone, and it's basically like a pixel game where you play as like a snake that's moving around and you just control it with like up, down, left, right keys. You just move the snake around and you have to, as the snake, you have to like eat these little objects on it, and it's like just pixels. It's a great fucking game. Like, very simple, but honestly super entertaining. And I remember, like, the first time that I got a mobile phone, actually before that, I remember I would, like, ask my, like, parents when we were, like, I don't know, in a waiting room for something. I'd ask to borrow their phone, and I would, like, play Snake on their phone. It's just a great game. I play it when I'm bored at work. Google has a version of Snake. Okay, that's awesome. That is cool. But I'm feeling a little bit nostalgic now for the old Nokia phone Snake. Okay. What's so fascinating about an empty old building?
Aha! But it's not just any empty old building.
He raises his hand to his eyes to shield himself from the pattering rain. All four of you turn to admire the mural before you.
What not a lot of people know is this used to be the R&D department of Feld Electrical. And Feld, which now sells ink cartridges mostly, was once a top dog in the turn-of-the-century cybernetics boom.
Hold on. What's R&D?
What's an R&D department?
Apologies, it's an acronym for research and development. They don't use it anymore.
He smiles brightly, laugh lines around his eyes.
You're probably more familiar with RTD, Research and Technological Development.
Mayor Kalpa, you are not familiar with that one either. This man is a myth.
Look at the building looming over you.
It looks old and weathered, with seagulls picking apart its stone and metal carcass. Bushy undergrowth has taken hold of the collapsed rooftop. Some kind of bird has set up a nest on a broken windowsill.
I don't think I've ever heard of this Feld Electrical.
That's not surprising. Only a vestigial ink cartridge and ferrotape manufacturer.
He adjusts his suit jacket.
They started out as a midway electronics outfit in Königstein 2 centuries ago. After an aggressive move to Revachol, Feld became a global player in the emerging personal electronics market of the pre-revolutionary era. Still, Tricentennial was beating them in business machines. But Feld had an ace up their sleeve. Or should I say, they were developing an ace up their sleeve? I'm mixing my metaphors here.
What was that, ace?
It was here in Martinaise, possibly in this very building, that they developed prototypes for
A tape computer?
An elegant folding mechanism of rollers and ferrotape ribbons, portable enough to be a take-it-home solution. Revolutionizing business machines, possibly even bringing them to the average consumer, which is a feat of engineering even today's giants, Rehm, ICN and ZAM, haven't achieved yet.
He grins, admiring the sentence he just produced.
He assumes something like a combat stance, facing the wind.
What happened?
Indeed. What?
The revolution!
The boy wipes his nose on his sleeve. You've been very quiet, son.
Unfortunately, their moonshot project never made it to the market. Feld's move to Revachol backfired. The revolutionary government liquefied their assets and expropriated those very advanced prototypes. Possibly from this very building, or one of the adjacent ruins.
He pauses, pointing to the other building, then continues.
All of this was built by Feld, even the boardwalk. While Pines built Martinaise proper as a resort for their middle management, Feld built this side of town for R&D.
Okay. What did the revolutionaries do with those advanced tape computers?
They used them for military communications, but also to write and send out press releases, the most notorious example being Le Decret de Mars.
He says while his son looks up, idly chewing on the corner of his worm-themed colouring book. What was that?
What's the Mars Decree? I mean the radio transmission sent out to news agencies and world governments by the newly created commune of Revachol on the 7th of March in the year 02. It's a beautiful piece of text, actually. A singer-songwriter I know, Charette, called it a love poem to Revachol on her political concept album, Bon Baiser d'Insolente. You should read it. Every local library in Revachol stocks a copy of the decree. I tried to get Mikhail to memorize it. Tried to. Someone was much too interested in worms to be paying any attention.
He looks at his son, who starts giggling, his face hidden behind the book. Good for him. What happened to the engineers, the company people?
Oh, I'm afraid it didn't end well for the boys. But this story is a bit too dark for little Mikhail here. Now, if you were to ask about tape computers...
He smiles again, as if he's somehow personally responsible for this bleak turn of events.
He means that the boys got shot by the communists. The boys were bourgeois.
Slay. Okay. I could turn to Mikhail and said he means they all got shot in the head because they were bourgeois. Now, do you know what the bourgeoisie is? Okay. Yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna say that.
Officer, I told you this chapter of history wasn't on Mikhail's curriculum yet.
He sounds disappointed.
The boy looks first at you, then back at his father, confused.
This is it. This is how they fucking get you. Because they aren't teaching you the right history. Don't worry about it, kid. Come speak to me later when your father isn't looking. I'll tell you all about the bourgeoisie and how they deserve to be shot in the head. How did those tape computers work?
Actually, no one knows. No one even knows what a computer made entirely of tape would look like. But word has it, they were very elegant. Exquisite, alien-looking turn-of-the-century hardware.
He raises his finger, remembering something.
10 years ago, I did a little freelancing, I guess you could say. I was a special consultant for an exhibition at the Wompty Dumpty Dum Center in Vedeport, Oranje. It raised the same questions, and we had lengthy discussions with Paul Ockerman, who was head curator at the time. This was before the twins Keith and Guy Jews joined the team.
Not the Wompty Dumpty Dum Center.
Wait, did he just say Wumpty Dumpty?
Yeah, he did say that.
He did it. He said Wumpty Dumpty Dum Center, like it's the most natural thing in the world. What the hell is a Wumpty Dumpty Dum Center? And who the hell are Keith and Guy Juice?
Well, precisely what I wanted to ask. I'm glad that the game has also picked up on how bizarre Wompty Dumpty Dum is as a name for a center of any description. Okay, the Wompty Dumpty Dum Center? Paul Ockerman, Keith and Guy Juiced? What are you talking about?
The Wompty Dumpty Dum Center for Contemporary Art. The exhibition itself drew on Lagerman's notion of memory, and so there were some parallels. That's why the head curator, Paul Ockerman...
Oh my god. Wait, as a person who spends a lot of time on YouTube and Twitch talking about art, I hate it when people talk about stuff... Well, art and politics. I hate it when people talk about stuff like this, like just assuming that you're supposed to know what the fuck they're talking about. Even if I didn't have some kind of like retrograde amnesia issue going on, how would I know any of what you're talking? Like, why would you assume that I know the artists and all of that you're talking about? This is why people hate art critics. You're making this up. Turn to the lieutenant. Kim, is he making this up?
In fact, I'm not. The Wompty Dumpty Dum Center is a place you can visit if you're ever in Redefort and are ever in the market for an exhibition space / contemporary art research center.
Thought gained. Wompty Dumpty Dum Center. What could that possibly be?
But perhaps I should return to the tape computers. As I was saying, the device itself was very elegant, fragile even. One could write directly on the tape using a special chemical solution. The machine would then analyze the handwriting, perform operations, and project output onto a white screen. It was a beautiful, delicate thing.
Made of black film and folding tape structures.
Cool.
Very, very cool. Though I understand the socio-economic causes of the revolution, it pains me to imagine the revolutionaries setting fire to this precious device. But so they did. The Feld playback experiment vanished into the fires of 07.
Why did the revolutionaries destroy it?
Who knows? Maybe it was an accident, or maybe they didn't want the technology to end up in the wrong hands. Either way, they're all gone now. All 3 versions of the prototype. Nothing but debris and ashes remain inside that building.
He takes a step back. The boardwalk creaks mournfully in the wind. You're saying that Feld Electrical built this boardwalk? Look under your feet.
Yes, they even built a pleasure wheel, but that got destroyed in the war.
A pleasure wheel?
The lieutenant looks wistfully at the horizon as if picturing gondolas rising to the sky. I don't know if I've ever heard that called a pleasure wheel, and I don't know if I like it being called a pleasure wheel.
Perhaps reminded of a childhood memory. It's clear he would prefer there were a big wheel lighting up the coast.
I mean, sure, but it would be a bit odd in this environment, wouldn't it?
Yes, to lure in their star engineers. This part of Martinaise was nothing but reeds before Feld arrived. They had to make the prospect of living here attractive. It was supposed to become a global center for innovation in cybernetics. But history had other plans.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. So, it seems like there was an intention to kind of kickstart a tech economy here in Martinaise. Something that the revolutionaries were perhaps aware of and trying to react to in some way. I wanted to ask something else.
But of course, what else?
You look like someone who has money. Do you have any money?
I do have some money, yes, but that's not what's really important.
He brushes it off like it's not a thing at all.
No, I mean, come on. You need the money. If it's not a thing, he can give you some.
Could I have some of that unimportant money then?
Oh no, I don't have it on me, officer. I was talking in more general terms.
Sure. Sure you were. Sure you don't have any money on you. Sure you can't spare any money. Okay. He looks uncomfortable, his left hand squeezing his son's shoulder.
I'm just spending time with my kid here, showing him around the lesser-known parts of our hometown. It wouldn't be wise to carry huge amounts of cash on such expeditions.
Where do I press square to rob him?
Not that he would have to worry about being robbed. He looks surprisingly buff. Does he work out?
By the way, do you work out?
I do some Lomantang stick fighting now and then.
What's Lomantang stick fighting?
It's an anthropological heritage of
Oh
the
my God.
Lomantang people. A martial art of sorts, but what not a lot of books mention is that it also carries a cultural significance among the Lomantangs, as it used to be the best means of showing off to look for a bride, which...
I can't believe he just called it an anthropological heritage of the Lomantang people. That's such a fucking insane white person thing to say. Just say that it's a martial art from that culture. Why do you have to bring anthropology into it, you weird covert racist?
Interestingly enough, brings us to the socio-economic structure of the traditional rural tribes of the Lomantang Isles, which...
I hate him. He goes on to give you a detailed overview of their way of life, the amiable, slightly nervous smile not once leaving his face. I'm sorry, but, like, red flags all over this guy, but the worst one has got to be this anthropology shit. Like...
But anyway, I'm boring you with details again. You were saying...
I didn't get half of this dialogue when I saw him. Oh, you, like, which stuff is new to you? I've been kind of, like, a bit shameless about asking rich people for money because, like, why not? Like, they have it. Like, they should redistribute it a little bit. I know that, as always, there's a bit of a tension in the fact that I'm a cop, but also I'm just, like, some broke-ass guy, and I'm hoping that at some point I could potentially get Harry to quit being a cop because I have kind of been role-playing him as, like, a Marxist, which is, of course, antithetical to a cop, but we'll see how things go. In any case, I have been shameless about asking rich people for money because, you know. Valvio says Trent is good people, he just uses extremely academic terminology for everything. Yeah, I mean, so I think that there's a reason why I don't like using overly academic terminology for everything, which is that I think that it comes across as condescending. Like, if you're in the right circle, like, if you're in certain circles, like, for example, you're an academic, you're talking to other academics, then, like, do whatever you want. But I think that talking in an overly academic tone is, like, it comes across, like, as really just condescending, and I don't think that it's, like, productive to try to speak to people in that way. In terms of the anthropology thing, I would say that I consider that actively damaging, because, you know, anthropology as a field of study has its roots in colonialism. So the field of study of anthropology was founded on this idea of, you know, going to, quote unquote, like, foreign cultures, studying the way of life of indigenous peoples, and more or less using that knowledge and, like, gaining that knowledge in the pursuit of colonial endeavors. And that is, like, the roots of the field of anthropology, and that's still relevant today. Like, anthropology today is still, it's a very, I mean, in the practice of it, it's incredibly objectifying and racist. So you have these white academics going to other countries and, in a very objectifying way, engaging with indigenous people and just, like, mining them for information about their way of life and using that information for their own profit, not crediting not crediting indigenous people for their own knowledge, claiming to have discovered things, exploiting the labor of indigenous people, and then often using this knowledge that they've gained about indigenous, like, lands and ways of life in order to legitimize colonization. And there are various examples of that. One of these actually is, one of many, is in the 1800s. Not a lot of people know this, but in the late 1800s, Britain, who would eventually, after the First World War, go on to take control of Palestine from the Ottomans, created an organization called the Palestine Exploration Fund. And the Palestine Exploration Fund had money for anthropological expeditions to Palestine, and this was because Britain had every intention from the 19th century of gaining colonial control of Palestine. And so you that's just one of many examples. You know, we can see this in the case of kind of like Australia, New Zealand, the United States, Canada, all of these kind of like colonial endeavors. And so anthropology, like, I think it's an actively damaging, it's an actively damaging, actively like colonial and racial field of study and like way of engaging with peoples and their cultures. So I think that's why I'm qualifying the way that he's talking about these people and their heritage is very, like, troubling to me. So yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing about talking in an overly academic way is, like, not necessarily productive, but not always, like, actively harmful. But anthropology, I think, definitely is, like, actively harmful as like a field of study. Prescriptive language isn't always called for in casual conversation. It's only important in academia and medicine. Yeah, well, it's funny, I guess, like, in the context of this being, like, a very left-wing, like, very communist anarchist game as well, like, this is a problem that really pervades, like, left-wing spaces, is, you know, as I'm sure some of you guys know, is certain spaces or certain individuals, like, being overly academic in the way that they discuss issues and engage with people. And I've always found that to be really frustrating for a lot of reasons, but one of them is that, like, what is communism about? Communism is about, like, you know, dismantling the violent structures of society that we live in, the capitalist state, this idea that we all have to, like, fight each other for survival. And it's about creating a world in which people all have guaranteed access to their basic necessities, and people can live and thrive and support each other in a world largely free of violence, or at least structural violence, right? That's what communism is about. And part of how we achieve communism, particularly, like, you know, this game talks about the world revolution and the attempted world revolution, and, you know, in communist thought, obviously there's like a lot of debate about this, but at least in traditional Marxist thought, the only way to achieve communism is on a global scale, which is, yeah, so it's like you can, you know, get a socialist government in a country and you can kind of like have various socialist policies in place, but these are stepping stones towards like global communism. You can't I guess you can't have communism and nations at the same time, but that's a whole other conversation. And in order for that to happen, like, you need, it's for everyone, right? And in order for that to happen, everyone needs to be on board with that. And that's why a really important part of communism is, I guess, that Marxist terminology is like consciousness raising, or the idea of like building class consciousness amongst people. That in itself, again, that's Marxist jargon all over again, but all it means is like encouraging everyday people to understand, like, that we live in a world where the working class is exploited by the ruling class, and that things don't have to be that way, and that we can change things. And I do believe in the importance of you know, educating yourself and trying to learn more and so on and so forth. I think that's really, really important. But if we're not making that knowledge accessible for everybody, then what's the point, you know? And I think that there are certain kinds of people, like certain kinds of, like, you know, self-described Marxist academics and stuff, who just write the most dense, inaccessible theory that like a handful of people can even read and engage with. And I just think that that's so contrary to the point of like what communism is meant to be about. And again, we've kind of said this a bit with Marx himself. Again, like, obviously, like, so much of the work he did was really valuable, but he wrote in a way which was like not particularly accessible, and that's a problem. So I think that, you know, whether or not, like, often I don't think people are necessarily like doing this intentionally or trying to cause harm, but I think that a really important part of like the project of building a better world for everybody, of building communism and so on, is like meeting people where they're at and being able to talk to people and discuss concepts with people in a way that's just like simple and casual. And when it comes down to a lot of like Marxist concepts and stuff, there are ways to break them down in a way that's a lot more understandable. And for people who have kind of like been on the channel for a while, on Game Assist, like, you know that that's super important to us. For people who are new to the channel, welcome. So that's really important to us here, and that's part of the reason why we have this channel, Game Assist, is because we really believe in the importance of political education, but in the importance of talking and meeting people where they're at, and like communicating to people in a way that's accessible. So we want to be able to communicate about things like communism, about things like anti-imperialism. We want to be able to encourage like understandings of those issues through accessible language and accessible means like YouTube or Twitch or whatever. And by, you know, talking about our shared interests and things that can bring us together, like video games. And so that's like a super important thing for us at this channel. And it's just something to think about for sure. I don't always think that people are like actively trying to cause harm when they do this, but I think that it's worth for some people who are like this to kind of stop and think about, you know, why do you like talk in such an overly academic way? For whose benefit is this for? You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, I've definitely like had people in my life who are very well-meaning, but sometimes I have to be, you know, maybe we're in a group setting and we're talking about something, and I have to be like, okay, you know, remember that, you know, not everyone understands these words. Could you explain what some of these words mean and stuff like that? I think it's always important to be thinking about those things. But with the anthropology stuff, I also think that that's just like actively, again, it's not always something people recognize, but it is like, it has a very racist history, and it's still applied in a very racist, very colonial way today. And so that, I think, can be actively damaging in a lot of ways. You know, interestingly, I did learn recently that in Canada, First Nations people fought really hard for rules regarding university research, where I don't know the specifics of this, so if you're interested, I'd definitely look into it some more. But in Canadian universities, there are apparently some pretty strict rules about protecting the rights of First Nations people from this kind of like exploitative anthropological research practice. I don't know the details of what these laws are, but there are like rules in place to kind of prevent Indigenous people, First Nations people from being exploited in anthropological research in this way. I should look into that some more, because I think that those kind of rules can be really useful across academia, because, you know, for example, some researchers are looking at other vulnerable groups, so they might be, you know, researching sex work, or they might be researching undocumented people or something like this, and these are vulnerable groups, and it's, you know, this research can often like be really exploitative and really damaging. And so I think that there's a lot that we can learn about that for sure, and kind of like learn from those sorts of rules. I think Tran is too used to talking with academics and forgot how to talk normally. I think you're right, lesbian pain. And again, it's like not necessarily maybe something that someone like that realizes or is like actively trying to be harmful, but it's the kind of thing where you need to kind of stop and recognize like, oh wait, like why am I doing this? I've encountered people like that on Twitter writing absolutely incomprehensible comments. Yeah, and it's just like, let's stop and think for a second. Like, who benefits from you speaking in a way that nobody can understand? You know what I mean? And a lot of people do it for a lot of different reasons. So I don't want to, like, you know, be judgmental or, like, armchair, like, pathologize anybody. But it's definitely something to stop and self-reflect about, I think. Okay, hold on. Let me go back to this conversation, and then I'll catch up with chat again in a minute. You were saying... Oh, yes, we were talking about him working out. I'm not really interested in the practice. I just want to know how often you work out now and then. That's what, like once a week?
Lomantang stick fighting is a little like a Berolidin addiction. I've been practicing it for nearly 20 years now, so you could say that my doses have grown a little peculiar.
Okay.
Wait, what does this man know about Pyrrolidon addiction?
So, okay, I could say, what is it? Twice a week then? Every other day? Man, is it difficult to stay on the right topic with you. Pyrrolidon addiction. What an interesting metaphor, or perhaps not a metaphor at all.
You got me, detective. But my history should hardly come as a
He
surprise.
chuckles before a shadow takes hold of his face. Well, I can empathize with that as someone, you know, me personally, I am someone who's like dealt with alcohol addiction, and one of the things that I've found really useful in my recovery is having like a physical hobby. So I got really into bouldering and like rock climbing, over the last few years, and like after I got sober, or like after I stopped drinking. And it's like, I guess the you know, the addiction can be a coping mechanism, and having other, you know, building other kinds of coping mechanisms can be really helpful, and climbing really helps me with that, so I can empathize.
Dad's fighting with sticks every night after dinner for 4 hours. He has a special room for that, and a special costume.
Although I don't know if I would compare it to addiction, my relationship with exercise, because that can also be unhealthy in its own way.
That's right, Mikhail. It also has a meditative quality. Helps to clear my head. But anyway...
Trant grabs his kid into a single-handed embrace, happy to change the subject. Okay, fair enough. I don't recall if it's a passive check or from dialogue options, but everything about why Trant behaves the way he does is explained if you dive in. Yeah, I think some of the character writing in this game is definitely interesting stuff. I'm gonna get going for a bit, but I've got some stuff to do. Have a good stream. No problem, Evelyn. And Aeon will also be lurking for a bit. No problem, you guys. Thanks for hanging around.
No, thanks to you for having me and little Mikhail here to pick your brain. A very interesting conversation indeed.
Pick your brain? If anything, this was rather one-sided. He did the talking. Whatever.
He seems like a nice enough guy, but yeah, very much some of the issues that come with talking to academics, I think.
You see, a once bright mural towering above you. The signage has peeled off over the years, but you can still make out Feld Electrical R&D.
Turn away.
You see,
Already did that. Buzz, hum, the electricity flows through the wires with audible power. His past addiction is why he's non-committal to any ideology and why he dove headfirst into hardcore academia and martial arts, says Valtheos. I think that, I mean, as I said, I can understand that, like, when you're recovering from addiction from personal experience, that, like, getting really into certain things can be a helpful way of dealing with that. I'm not sure what addiction has to do with being non-committal to any ideology. So I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'm also not sure if I see I'm just not sure if I see the connection and in how the game kind of portrays that as well, but I can see, from what he said, and he kind of showed that he has an explicit understanding of that. I can see why, the martial arts interest would kind of like, and even like the academic interest would come out of that kind of thing. But even so, I think that, again, it being kind of critically aware of how we engage in things like academia is still really important. A makeshift roof. Vagrants have tried to make boardwalk habitable. A coin-operated weighing machine hasn't been used for decades. Does he say anything about avoiding extremes? Because I'm not sure that I remember him saying that. Maybe he says that in some other dialogue option that I missed, but I just... Yeah, I'm very, I'm very wary of the idea of seeing all political ideologies as extremes to avoid. And again, like, I'm also kind of hesitant of, like, the phrase addictive personality, because I don't necessarily like the way that it, like, pathologizes addiction. Again, like, I've struggled with addiction, and, like I understand that it's kind of saying, you know, that some people have certain tendencies to get really, really, you know, overly, perhaps unhealthily, like, invested in one particular coping mechanism. But I think that that's something that you can work on and something that you can change. And again, this is, like, from my own experience and my own feelings about that. And yeah, so I'm a bit wary of that. And then when it comes to kind of, like, the idea of, like, you know, ideological extremes, again, I think it comes down to that idea of, like, horseshoe theory, which I really disagree with. So it's, you know, the idea that, like, quote-unquote right-wing extremism and quote-unquote left-wing extremism are basically two sides of the same coin, and I, like, fundamentally disagree with that, because, you know, left-wing, like, properly left-wing ideology in the realm of kind of, like, communism and anarchism, it just isn't comparable to extreme right-wing conservatism, because extreme right-wing conservatism is, like, incredibly bigoted and violent, and it legitimizes, like, mass violence towards particular groups of people, right? Like, it's the scale of the violence that right-wing extremism, or I don't even, the language of extremism, I don't know, that right-wing conservatism kind of perpetuates is enormous, right? So, you know, it's for kind of various racist policies, such as mass deportations or the imprisoning of undocumented people. It's for the stripping back of reproductive rights and the stripping back of rights for queer people. It's about stripping back rights for disabled people and working class people, like welfare benefits, all of that. Those are all, like, extremely violent policies, and those are right-wing policies. Like, left-wing ideology is not just the opposite of the same coin, it is fundamentally opposed to that, and it's fundamentally opposed to all of that violence. The point of communism and anarchism, and obviously, again, there are complexities and nuances and debates amongst, you know, us about exactly, you know, what we believe in and exactly how we kind of, like, want to build a better future. But the whole point of those ideologies is, again, it's actually about getting rid of those violence. It's about the idea that people, that all human beings, regardless of anything, deserve the right to life. They deserve, you know, their basic needs met. And so that is antithetical to violence. It's the opposite of violence. And this idea of horseshoe theory, which, like, paints left-wing ideas as being violent or extreme or something to avoid, is really dangerous. And it's part of this, like, Red Scare narrative, which, you know, has existed for many decades because of the fact that communism, the reason why, like, people want us to be afraid of communism and to think these things, they want us to think that communism is violent, they want us to think that communism is extreme, quote unquote, or whatever, is because communism is a threat to, it's a threat to the status quo. Like, the more people believe in communism, the more, like, the powers that be are threatened, because we're threatening the control they have over us, we're threatening their ability to exploit us for profit, you know, to commit mass violence and genocide. And so I'm really wary of this, because I think it's propaganda, like the idea that it's an extreme that we should avoid. And it's propaganda to keep us from ideologies that can actually serve us in being liberated from these violent forces like capitalism, like imperialism. But in terms of the character Trant, I don't know if he's said anything like that, so I'd be quite interested. I mean, he did say something about being sympathetic to the socioeconomic reasons for the revolution happening, but disagreeing with this one particular action, which was like the burning of that technology. I don't know if he necessarily said anything about being opposed to extremes. Maybe it comes up in other dialogue, but I don't know. Also, sorry, I just wanted to finish that thought, but hi Woke Void, first time chatter, welcome to the chat, and thank you so much for the follow. It often ends up being very we should consider both sides territory. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that is also dangerous, right? Because both sides, quote unquote, are not on equal footing here, because in countries like, you know, the United States, Canada, European nations, like in these Western countries, the status quo is a right-wing status quo. Even under like liberal parties and liberal governments, like the Democrats, like other parties like that. I mean, we could get into a whole thing about the complexities of that in different countries. I'm from the UK, and that's a whole story. But, like, it's a right-wing status quo because it's a neoliberal capitalist nation. And therefore, like, right-wing propaganda is being peddled to us in all areas of life. It's, you know, in the mass media, on social media, on like on television shows and films and so on and so forth. And so right-wing ideology and propaganda, it has this enormous infrastructure of money and institutions on its side, like billions of dollars, like control over mass media. Like in every area of life, we're being bombarded with like center to right propaganda that supports the neoliberal capitalist status quo. And on the other side, like us on the left wing, we've got like our 5 friends and like 5 Great British pounds. You know what I mean? Obviously that's like a cartoonish or exaggerated picture, but it's just like we're like fighting against everything to like create like self-funded like publications and like, you know, print out leaflets from like free library printers and stuff to like spread the word of communism. So the two sides are not like equal by any stretch of the imagination. And so this idea of like 2 equal sides when it comes to the right wing and the left wing is not only like materially not true, but it's also like, you know, one side stands for like perpetuating a world where mass violence continues in order for a handful of people to profit, and the other side is like, okay, but what if we like stopped climate change and made a world where everyone can live without worrying about where their next meal is going to come from and where they're going to sleep tonight? So yeah. Okay, let's stroll around a bit and then I'll catch up with chat again. A big wine canister. It's open and empty. Oh, no. There we go. This coin-operated viewer has been out of order for years. Oh, come on. Let me click on that. It's a long way down to your death from here. 20 meters at least. Okay, woof. Didn't really want to think about death.
The smell.
In this moment.
It's awful and familiar.
What is it? What is the smell?
Don't you recognize it? That hideous pungency. That faintly cloying sweetness. Only death smells like that. Something cold wakes in the pit of your stomach. Fear. It is death. It must be.
Kim, what's that smell?
The lieutenant has already brought a handkerchief to his nose.
Eyes up, detective. Something's not right.
Oh, okay. I'm scared now.
A man lies on the boardwalk, his limbs bent and neck turned at an unnatural angle. Right next to him is an empty bottle of spirits. In his cramped hand, a chewing gum
Okay,
wrapper.
well, relevant. He has a working class corpse. Poor guy. Like, literal corpse? Like, dead? Or, like, metaphorical corpse? Like, he looks like he's dead. Like, he's on the brink of death. Like, he's so fucked up, he's like a corpse.
Half of his body has slipped between the cracked boardwalk, starting with the right leg. The fall has left him broken, contorted like a sad puppet.
Valthea says, I'm quite aware of the vast gulf between and mischaracterization between left and right-wing extremism. Anything I say about the game is at least in part within the context of the game's world and not necessarily its real-world parallels. I appreciate you making your position, like your personal position, clearer, but I do think that game worlds, they don't just exist within themselves, right? Game worlds are always, created in the context of the real world. And so I think that is always an important part of the conversation. And yeah, I guess that I, didn't necessarily want to make any assumptions about you or your beliefs, but just taking for granted what is the game telling me about this character, which as far as I could see at that point, I didn't necessarily see in my playthrough so far any textual evidence about that character to the effect that he held that opinion. But if he did hold that opinion, what do I think of that opinion? And there are my thoughts kind of on that. Yeah, in terms of the game's construction of these things, this is my first time playing it, so I am kind of like making sense of the game world as we go along. But I do think that the game world is constructed in a pretty... I think the writing is pretty, like, communist. And I think that... I am very intrigued by some of the complexities of how things like the Dock Workers Union or the World Revolution and the failure of the World Revolution are being portrayed in this game. And in previous streams I talked a little bit about, for example, the trade union stuff, because I think that I'm still kind of like uncovering that plot line and what exactly is going on with the trade union. But again, I think that it brings up some interesting differences and parallels to real world contexts and like the role of trade union in struggle and like corruption within some trade unions. Actually, on that subject, just a fun fact to drop in about that actually is that so recently I was at like a very cool exhibit in a local art gallery about women in revolt in the UK from the 1970s and the 1980s, and there's a lot of really cool stuff in this exhibit about like the Wages for Housework campaign and OAD, the Organization for Women of African and Asian Descent in the UK. There was a lot of really cool stuff, but one of the things in the exhibit was like photographs and pieces relating to the Grunwick strike, which I want to share with you guys. If you've never heard of the Grunwick strike before, I think it's a really important kind of piece of working class history and like resistance to kind of learn about and learn from. The Grunwick strike it's called Grunwick because of like the company that was the employer that was being targeted was called Grunwick. I don't remember where in the UK it was exactly. I think it might have been in London, but I'm not sure. Anyway, this was a film processing factory. Grunwick was a film processing factory, and many of its workers were South Asian women. So, women of South Asian descent from what is now like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh kind of area. And many of them actually came to the UK from Africa after a series of kind of like Africanization policies in certain countries, which drove out people of South Asian descent who were actually in Africa in the first place because of colonial history. That's a whole other story worth looking into if you're interested, like the history of South Asian people in Africa. And these women were in very precarious, low-paid work that was being given to them by the Grunwick factory because a lot of white women didn't want to do this work. And of course, these migrant women in precarious positions didn't have a lot of choice, so they take less pay for these jobs. But the company also relied on the idea of South Asian women as being docile. They thought that these women would just kind of like accept their position because South Asian women are like docile or whatever, like submissive. So they kind of relied on this like racial trope about South Asian women. But the workers did in fact decide to go on strike against Grunwick, and it's one of the most militant strikes in modern history of the United Kingdom. And they were super surprised by the militancy of these striking women because they just relied on these like racial stereotypes of those women. They used strike breakers who were also from South Asian backgrounds and tried to exploit that. And they also tried to kind of exploit like within the South Asian community, like the idea of like shame or reputation to try to get these women to stop striking. So there's a really fascinating like way in which gender norms and cultural norms are being exploited here. But the Grunwick strike, it was extremely militant. It was picking up a lot of support and like solidarity. But the downfall of the Grunwick strike was actually because of the betrayal of the TUC, or the Trade Union Congress. So the Trade Union Congress is an organization that still exists to this day in the United Kingdom. And a lot of people within the trade union movement and the left-wing movement here in the United Kingdom, where I live, is a pretty colored history, and the organization is not necessarily always as far left or as supportive of like working class struggle as it could be, and this was a very strong example. So the TUC, obviously being like a very white male dominated organization, that's still true to this day, betrayed the Grunwick strikers and stopped supporting the strike, and this pretty much damned the strike and damned the workers at Grunwick, which is horrible, right? But it's a very stark like example of what I've been talking about in terms of how like sometimes certain trade unions like actually have been known to like be corrupt or to betray the working class. I learned about this in a bit more detail at this exhibit, and it's just a very important part of history that I think really is pertinent to some of the themes in this game around like the dock workers union and stuff. Have I talked to Everett after mailing the envelope? Not yet. I will aim to do that today if I can.
Hold on.
The lieutenant squats next to the corpse and examines his face. Two bulging eyes stare back at him, void of any signs of life.
Lividity is faintly pronounced. Whoever this is, he's been dead for 2 days. No longer. We need to investigate.
He stands up and shivers as a gust of wind blows through his bomber jacket.
Another dead body. This is your job. Steel yourself. Calm now. Carefully. Just another day. Just another dead body. Breathe.
Okay, so he's literally dead. Poor guy. Is there, I mean, can we do anything about this? Like, in terms of, like, helping somebody find their loved one? Study the man's clothes.
He's wearing mud-caked boots, beige trousers, and an old brown leather jacket with a bright blue lining. There are traces of kebab sauce.
Kebab sauce. Now that's a working class corpse.
The leather jacket suits him well. It must be custom made.
Search his pockets.
You find some sunflower seeds and a rain-soaked library card folded into two. His jacket feels sodden and heavy under your hand.
Good. We should take a look at that library card after this is done.
Study the man himself.
The man has fallen through a crack in the boardwalk and hit his head against the metal bench. Coagulated blood covers his black hair. One of his feet is still dangling through the hole. A bad fall. It might have been dark outside. This place is a minefield in the dark.
Examine his face.
His expression is dull, like the sea behind him. Drops of water shining on his moustache. His eyes, empty and wide, look frightening in their frozen gaze. He was confused when he died. Confused and alone, most likely. Overcome with the awful surprise of it all. He was just about to head home. The first step back home proved to be his last.
Poor guy.
That's what the chewing gum seems to point to as well.
Study the surroundings.
There's some dried blood on the metal bench, right where the corpse's head rests. The floorboards are rotten and slippery wet around the hole. An empty bottle lies nearby. A chewing gum wrapper is clutched in his fist.
Examine the man's head.
A dried chunk of blood covers the hair at the back of his head. An open wound. It's sticky and cold to your touch. This is what killed him. This is where he came out of himself, drop by drop, when he was unconscious. It took 3, maybe 4 minutes.
I don't see any other major wounds, do you?
It's hard to say.
Seems like the head wound was fatal. It's exactly the shape of the bench.
Step on the floorboards.
They screech under your feet ominously. It's hard to say whether the dead man's weight was the cause of the boardwalk to break. It definitely looks fragile.
Examine the bottle.
A .75 litre Tallulah vodka with its cap missing. There's hardly anything left inside.
Oh, also, I think I forgot to answer your question, Valthios. Did you read La Fumée magazine in the Union office? I'm not sure I did. I'll keep an eye out for it when I go back to the Union office, though. A 0.75 litre... Okay, just said that.
Tear all around us.
He looks at 2 other bottles near the coin-operated viewer, then at your yellow plastic bag.
I'd prefer if you didn't collect them this time. It's not proper.
Okay, yeah.
True. It feels disrespectful.
Examine the chewing gum wrapper.
Revacholiere spearmint chewing gum. Green leaves on the cover. The man's mouth is half agape from the terror of the fall.
Look in.
The blackness of death. Stench. You think you see white chewing gum too?
He ate the whole pack, right? It's to cover the smell of alcohol before going home. The worst thing is, I've seen it before. Almost the same scenario. Even the chewing gum. It's always the same.
Step back.
The entire boardwalk creaks in the wind as you take a step back.
Who is this man?
Looks like one of the locals. He'd have to know this spot to come here. You don't just walk over here.
He looks south, the way you came.
But that's just a lazy assumption. What do you think?
This is an omen. A sign from above. Don't start drinking again.
Don't worry, Inland Empire, you don't need to tell me twice. He looks like me. I could have ended up just like him, dead on some empty boardwalk with a bottle next to my corpse.
Well, at least you're not married.
The lieutenant points at the ring on the man's left hand, the flesh around it swollen and grey. That was, possibly an insensitive comment, Kim, but I don't think that you knew what wound you were accidentally stabbing at.
Or, what if you are?
But let's try to not run ahead. For now, all we know is that he's an unidentified middle-aged man found dead on the Martinaise boardwalk.
What do you think happened here?
Death by misadventure. He slipped and fell through the boardwalk. A truly unfortunate accident. If it wouldn't have been for that bench, he'd be alive.
Do you think he was drunk? Point at the bottle.
Oh yes.
What about alcohol poisoning and liver failure?
Some symptoms of acute alcohol poisoning could have definitely played a role here. Severe confusion, respiratory depression, unpredictable behavior. But I think that death arrived through head trauma, not liver failure.
What about the kebab?
What about it? The deceased ate some kebab. It's probably from a nearby place, maybe in the box.
Sometimes a kebab is just a kebab.
A kebab is never just a kebab, logic. Someone should be held responsible for this broken boardwalk. It's dangerous.
They'll seal this place off after the news reaches the coalition officials. I doubt that they have enough resources to actually repair the boardwalk.
That's such a like European working class culture thing as well, the kebab shop. Much to be said about the cultural significance of the kebab shop in European countries. Much to be said.
Not that sealing it off would keep anyone away. All it does is keep the city council's hands clean.
He smiles sourly. I mean, I don't think it could be, but no harm in asking. Could it be related to the lynching?
No, I don't see anything that points in that direction. For now, let's treat this case as a simple, albeit sad, accident, unrelated to the murder case.
Agreed. If this somehow converges later, why not? But keep it simple for now.
Right.
It does seem to be a pretty straightforward misadventure, although there's still a question of identifying the body.
What should we do with him?
From where I stand, I can see two options. We either take the case and follow the leads to identify the body on our own, or we report back to the station and leave this for our colleagues to handle.
What about field autopsy?
A field autopsy isn't necessary if the cause of death doesn't appear to be criminal, and this looks like a simple accident to me. I'd say we should just write down head trauma in the autopsy report and leave it at that. It would save us at least 2 hours of unnecessary work.
Yes, but isn't that kind of sloppy? This is quite an interesting attitude from Kim, who is generally like very methodical and very invested in the meticulous kind of bureaucracy of police work. I think this dismissive attitude is quite interesting to note. Like, it's not as important. Like, this death isn't as important, and it's not as important to be thorough about it, you know?
Maybe, but we don't really have much time or resources to spare. The guys at processing will take care of the rest.
We found him. We should finish this. Take the case.
Alright, we should first examine the library card you found. Then we can call the station from my kinema. Let them know we are taking the case.
Okay. What do we got? I should stop by the pawn shop later because I really don't feel comfortable carrying around all of this alcohol. And, I think... that... Sorry, I'm just reading these stats. I think that, oh, what was I going to say? Forgot what I was going to say. Nope, I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry, guys. Okay. Call the station, examine the library card. That's what I was going to do. I was going to look for the library card.
The library card is folded into two and still slightly wet to the touch. The front side reads, Central General Public Library Card, issued to Billy Mijon, expires July 53.
King uses public library. Love to see it.
Billy is a unisex name. Could be the deceased or his family member.
Any name can be unisex if you want it to be. Look inside.
Whoever owns this card is an avid reader. You find a list of books written in blue pencil. Radio thriller. Stand a little less between me and the sun. The last one in the list is The Glinting Curve by M. Theobald. A library stamp indicates that the book has been returned. Most of these titles seem to be in the sci-fi genre. Some thrillers too.
Look at the backside.
If lost, please return the card to the library. Dial 00502552211 or visit us at Moreau Street, 78, Jamrock. Business hours, 900 to 1800.
Good. We should give them a call from my kinema. See if we can learn anything about Billy Mijon.
Sounds good. Okay, so we can do all of that when we go back to Kim's car, I guess.
There's some tear, an empty cigarette package, and a crumpled kebab wrapper in the trash bin.
Yeah, let's leave it. Careful there, the floorboards look rotten and weak. Moonshine probably, smells like a tasty fermentation. Okay. Ooh, what's that?
Someone has left an unidentifiable article of clothing on this railing. It smells really bad.
Touch it. Take a closer look.
It's streaked with dried seagull shit and tangled with pieces of seaweed. A dangling arm suggests that there might be a jacket beneath the crust of filth. It seems likely that it was left in the surf until someone laid it out on this fence to dry out. Unfortunately, that just seems to have stiffened it into a shapeless mass.
Please tell me you're not taking that.
Why
with you.
not?
It's a guano-encrusted jacket, and you're already carrying around enough as it is.
Took it anyway. Sounds gross, but I gotta have my collectible clothes. Where is it? Where's the jacket that I just stole? Is it too gross for me to wear? So it's like in a different... Yeah, there we go. Filthy jacket. This filthy rag has been at the mercy of the elements for quite some time. It's streaked with seagull shit and abnormally stiff from God knows what natural processes. You can't even tell what brand it is.
As you hold it in your hands, it makes an uncomfortable crunching sound.
Man, how did this jacket get so disgusting?
It's a sordid, filthy tale, not for the weak. Are you sure you can stomach it? Some secrets are better left uncovered. Don't even try. Seriously.
Think about it. Yeah, fuck it.
It occurs to you that you're not even holding the jacket itself, but rather the thick crust of jetsam and seagull shit that ensconces it.
Gross.
Why? Why did you think about it? Look at your hands. They're covered in muck.
Ew, ew, ew. Flick your hands.
Now you're just flicking that shit everywhere. This is a disaster. You'll never get the smell out.
Welp. Well, that seems to have been a mistake, but I wanted to see. So... Someone must have worked hard to smash the plastic dome. Oh, what's that?
A metal payphone under a yellow plastic dome. You could use it to call someone, unless you're out of change.
Pick up the headset.
You hear the tone. The machine is inoperable.
It's inoperable? Oh, it is operable. Okay, cool. Put 10 cents in and dial a random number. 005 24 03 155.
Calling. Still calling. This feels wrong. Should you be doing this?
I don't know, I just want to see what happens.
End of tone. Someone picks up.
Pierre, is that you, Pierre?
The voice is female and sounds about 100 years old. I might be. What's Pierre like?
So nice of you to find the time to call me. It gets so lonely. Even the animals have died.
What kind of pets did you have?
Are you sure you're Pierre? Your voice, it's different.
Her voice is drowned in white noise. Sounds like waves washing a beach, growing in volume until the call suddenly disconnects. You get a sinking feeling. It makes you look if Lieutenant Kitsuragi overheard you. To your relief, he did not.
Okay, can I just... My question is, can I just endlessly call random numbers? Let me do it another time. You know, I've got some 10 cents to spare before it adds up to too much. Put 10 cents in and dial a random number. 00551179112. That sounds like a different number.
Calling. Still calling. Someone with a masculine voice picks up.
Hello, Gerard speaking.
Hello, Gerard. Technically speaking, your electricity.
Is electricity here? There? I need to speak with electricity, please.
No, but I got a feeling I'll kick your ass is gonna make an appearance if you ever call this number again. Have a good one.
Not what I would sound someone like called Gerard to sound like, but...
Phone hanging up. Disconnect tone.
Okay, one more, and then we'll move on. Put 10 cents in and dial a random number. 00599777313.
Calling. 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 Still calling. Still calling.
Stop calling me, man.
Someone picks up. The voice on the other end is slightly hysterical.
I'll get you your money, alright? I just need till tonight. Let me work.
Who is this?
You got the wrong number. Don't call here again.
Disconnect tone.
The lieutenant is ready to move on now. Okay. Alright, Kim.
Winter, slow to let go of Revacholiere. Flex some more wet snow from above.
Look around you.
The snow falls lazily, making the beach sand paler still, mixing with the rust-colored sewage runoff. And to think, it seemed as though it were already spring. You're warm in your hat and your coat. Like a well-equipped explorer, you comfortably survey the white landscape.
What's in the west?
More winding coastlines lined with abandoned buildings, crumbling piers, salt water lapping at their dark piles, grey and red forgotten city blocks, what remains of the pre-revolutionary effort to gentrify the coast.
And beyond that?
The waters turn black, coal city in the shadow of San Martin, a boom town, back when coal extracted from countless shafts near the city was needed to power Revacholiere. No more. The coal was supplanted by petroleum from the ocean floor and hydropower from the Esperance. Everything crumbled. These days, only the weakest remain in Coal City. Their hopes of getting rich linger in the defunct shafts under their feet.
What is there?
Below the old mines, L'Océan Municipal, Revacholiere's underground cemetery. Le Petit Rat braved the underground passageways, trying to get to Le Royaume.
Le Royaume.
Where the Philippian kings were interred, with their doctors and their admirals. Mausoleums, burial chambers, leaf gold still remains on the double door of the morning.
Le Petit Rat.
Children under 14, they go underground looking for artifacts to sell to foreign museums and for fabled relics. Their parents let them. They go deeper. After rubies, melchiorite, lapis lazuli, plundered from Safre and Seol during the time of the suzerain. In the burial chambers of the kings, Grand Old Philip, Guillaume II, and even in the mausoleum of Philip the Opulent. 2 kilometers underground, in a winding shaft along whose walls mirrors have been placed, so that daylight may eternally fall upon the richest of all the kings. The mausoleum contains untold quantities of gold, and that special, purest of the pure magenta cocaine, favored by Revacholian royalty. How can it be pure if it's magenta?
Wow. Are you saying that things can only be pure if they're white? Is that what you're saying, logic? How can it be pure if it's magenta?
Snow falls, and there is no answer. Some things are not for mortals to know.
Wipe the snow from your shoulder.
Few Petit Rat return from the shafts. Even fewer find what they're looking for. A small child steps out of the black tunnel with silver trinkets in her pockets. All around her, white snow on the extinguished coke furnaces, and on the weather-worn shacks where fathers beat their sons after drinking. The snow melts on your fingers, turning to water.
What's in the east?
The canal you crossed to get here, and beyond it. Martinaise proper, the district the police forgot to police. There is laughter, lights, attempts at entrepreneurial activity, cynicism. Someone is scraping snow off their windshield at the roundabout, in the midst of which a statue of Philip III serves as a destination for grade school field trips and a fine perch for winter birds.
And further?
A fenced-off yard. There's a truck belonging to a logistics company parked next to the gate. Bright light from a building behind the fence reflects off its hood. Clean white light coming from the windows of a clean cube-shaped office building hidden amidst ruins. A secret.
What's in the north?
The abandoned church, one of 2 remaining stave churches, which were collectively called Les Sept Sœurs. The other 6 sisters were destroyed during the revolution.
Is Sept Sœurs 7 sisters? And further north?
A serpentine strip of land weaving its way into the Martinaise inlet. Unfortunates on the run from the law, from themselves. sometimes hide out on nearby islets, little dots in the ocean that are occasionally submerged when the tide is high and the weather foul.
And on the islets?
The remains of a camp on a jagged piece of rock, a tent, old dishes and cutlery, long since abandoned. A hermit crab scuttles among the debris, looking for a new shell. Further out, the lights burn bright on Resurrection, way beyond Martinaise, a popular spa destination for ample-bodied Ozon kids with equally ample pockets.
And on the other side of the inlet?
Then there's Ozon, but the snow falls too thick. You cannot see that far.
Before that? Before the curtains are drawn?
The Bay of Revacholiere, vastness, great depth, over 1,200 meters at its deepest. Water, air brinier than hair. It is crisscrossed by huge cargo ships bearing company logos. Wild Pines, Zam, Morian, and at the farthest reaches of the Bay of Revacholiere, the shadow of the coalition warship Archer, on perpetual patrol duty, ready to unleash artillery fire if you were to rise up against the market. You shudder.
Oh, hi Lalin, welcome. How are you doing? How is your recovery going? Well, I hope. What's in the south?
The raised motorway, 881, separating Martinaise from Jamrock. Vehicles whoosh past one another day and night, while those who reside in the labyrinthine alleyways beneath the motorway attempt to carry on with their lives in the snow and the slush. And south of the 881 is the Pox.
The Pox
was once a park, a place for reflection and recuperation for the patients of the old military hospital. In the 20s, it was used as a quarantine center during a measles outbreak that killed many children. Most everyone has avoided the hospital and surrounding park ever since. The Pox is completely wild now. Evergreen thickets covered in snow and industrial dust. Feral dogs and even wolves roaming in packs. The police try to keep the deepest corners cordoned off.
But still.
Heavy drug users do slip through and hole up in the old military hospital, hoping to find something to get high on among the hastily abandoned supplies, or just to overdose in peace.
Further south?
A line of motor garages with armored carapaces hunched in the cold. A mechanic is hard at work, patching up bullet holes in the side of a Capri 40. These are the garages of Precinct 41. Snow settles on the roof of the repurposed silk mill. It serves as your station. Shivering RCM personnel hurry in and out of the main entrance. Around you, the snow continues to fall. To the west, the ocean swells.
Recovering suspiciously fast. I've been up and about since day 2 post-op. Wow. That's cool. Wounds look crazy. Yeah. I think... Yeah. I had a difficult recovery for a few reasons. But I think one of the things for me is that I asked them to... So this is breast reduction surgery. I asked them to, like, basically go as small as they could go without, like, completely removing, like, without it being, like, a full mastectomy, like, completely removing the breasts. And, I guess just because of, like, the way that mine were, they said that they had to do, like, a nipple graft for it, which is part of a full mastectomy, like part of what you do in top surgery and stuff like that, which basically means like the additional procedure of like cutting off and reattaching the nipples, which is like a whole thing that makes like that's not usually like a standard part of breast reduction surgery, and yeah. Oh, hello, Layla. Hi. My cat's just jumped back on the desk again. Hello, little lady. it was interesting because I had to kind of like look at a mix of breast reduction and top surgery recovery advice and like surgery advice. It was a bit of a unique experience. Okay. Look around.
A chill comes over you, crawling down your back. The sand under your feet is wet. Somewhere in the south, tarpaulin flap in the wind.
What's above?
More coalition aerostatics. Occasionally, lights flash as they maneuver through the falling snow. One large airship carries crates in its belly.
What's below me?
Layer upon layer of sand, poisoned with industrial runoff. The storm drainage, hidden bunkers. Rats scuttle.
Tell me a secret of the sands, Wind.
Someone stuffed a big old polar anorak into a concrete pipe under the boardwalk. It would keep you warm. You would probably never happen across it, but who knows?
Stomp your feet for warmth, brushing off the snow.
We should keep moving. Who knows when the snow will let up.
Looks like it just did, Kim. Dead phone, a smashed receiver. Looks like someone hung up too hard.